My husband divorced me via text message while I was working as a talker abroad. I'm leaving you and moving in with my girlfriend of 20 years. I'm taking all our money with me. I calmly replied, "Sure, good luck." By the time she realized what I had done, it was too late. Subscribe now to find out how this story ends, because what happened next will shock you. Leave a like to continue now. Thank you, and now let's get to the story. I was sitting in a cramped hotel room in Bangkok, my laptop open on the tiny desk, when my phone buzzed with a message that would change everything, though not in the way my husband expected. "Rebecca, I'm done with this marriage. I'm leaving you for Madison. She's 20, she's beautiful, and she makes me feel alive again. I'm taking everything, the house, the accounts, all of it. Don't try to fight me on this. I've already moved the money." 23 years of marriage, 23 years of building a life together. And he ends it with a WhatsApp message while I'm 8,000 miles away, working my ass off as a corporate consultant to fund our supposedly shared dreams. A second message followed immediately. "Madison and I are moving in together next week. We're young and in love. You're 47, Rebecca. It's time you accepted that your best years are behind you." I stared at those messages for a long time, my hands surprisingly steady. The Bangkok traffic honked endlessly below my window, but all I could hear was the sound of my own heartbeat, not racing with panic or breaking with grief, just steady, methodical, like a countdown timer. A 20-year-old girl, my husband of 23 years, was throwing away our entire life for someone who wasn't even born when we got married. I typed back 4 words. "Sure. Good luck, darling." What Marcus didn't know, what he couldn't possibly have known, was that I had been preparing for this moment for months, and by the time his precious Madison realized what kind of man she had chosen, it would be far too late to save either of them. Let me take you back to where this all began, because every good revenge story starts with understanding exactly what was lost and what was really at stake. Marcus and I met in college. He was studying business, I was in finance. We were both ambitious, both hungry for success, both convinced we were destined for greatness. We married young. I was 24, he was 26, and for the first few years we were genuinely happy. We built our consulting firm together, Hartwell and Associates, from the ground up. 16-hour days, ramen noodles for dinner, sleeping on an air mattress in our first office because we couldn't afford both rent and a hotel. Those were good times, believe it or not. We were partners in every sense of the word. The company grew. We landed bigger clients, hired employees, moved to a real office with actual furniture. By our 10th anniversary, we were millionaires on paper. By our 15th, we were millionaires in reality. Marcus handled business development and client relations. I managed the financial side, budgets, investments, the complex web of international contracts that kept our money flowing. We never had children. It wasn't a conscious choice at first. We were too busy building the business, always saying next year or when things settle down. By the time we realized we wanted a family, it was too late. 3 miscarriages and countless fertility treatments later, we accepted that it wasn't meant to be. That shared grief should have brought us closer. Instead, it created a distance that we never quite bridged. Marcus threw himself into work with renewed intensity. I did the same, but I also started to notice that he was throwing himself into other things as well. It started small. Gym memberships he never used to care about. New clothes, more expensive than his usual taste. A sudden interest in nightlife and networking events that always seemed to run late. Then about 8 months ago, I noticed Madison. She was an intern at one of our client companies, a bright-eyed college senior majoring in marketing. 20 years old, blonde, petite, with that effortless confidence that comes from never having experienced real failure or disappointment. Everything I had been at her age, before life taught me that success requires sacrifice and that dreams don't always come true. I should have seen the signs earlier. The way Marcus's eyes lit up when she walked into meetings, the sudden emergency consultations that required him to work late with the client team, The way he started mentioning her name in casual conversation, Madison had an interesting insight about the campaign. Madison suggested we try a different approach, but I trusted him. God help me, I trusted him completely. The irony is that our business was thriving. I had just landed a massive contract with a tech conglomerate in Southeast Asia that required me to spend 6 months of the year abroad, overseeing their financial restructuring. The contract was worth $12 million over 3 years, the biggest deal we'd ever secured. Marcus was thrilled about the money, less thrilled about me being gone so much. It's just temporary, I told him. Once this contract is complete, we'll be set for life. We can retire early if we want, travel the world, finally have time for each other. He nodded and smiled and said all the right things. What he didn't say was that he was already planning to have time for someone else, someone young enough to be our daughter. The signs became impossible to ignore during my second trip to Bangkok about 4 months ago. I had been gone for 3 weeks when I decided to surprise Marcus by coming home a day early. I caught a red-eye flight from Thailand, landed in New York at 6 a.m., and took a taxi straight to our house in Westchester. The house was empty, but there were signs that Marcus hadn't been alone the night before. 2 wine glasses in the sink, a hair tie on the bathroom counter that wasn't mine. The bed was made, but hastily, and there was a faint smell of perfume that I didn't recognize. When Marcus came home that evening, I was sitting in the living room with a glass of wine, waiting. "Rebecca, you're back early. I wasn't expecting you until tomorrow." "I wanted to surprise you." I studied his face carefully. "How was your evening?" "Quiet. I had dinner with the Peterson clients, went over some contract details, got home around midnight." The Peterson clients. I had spoken to them the previous week. They were both out of town at their daughter's wedding in California. That was the moment I knew for certain. Not suspected, not worried about. Knew. My husband was having an affair, and he was lying to my face with the same smile he used to charm clients. I didn't confront him. Instead, I started paying attention. Really paying attention. Over the next several weeks, I noticed things I'd been too trusting to see before. Charges on our credit cards for restaurants I'd never been to. Always for 2 people. Always during expensive lunch hours or romantic dinner times. Hotel charges in the city when we lived an hour away by train. Expensive gifts, jewelry, perfume, designer handbags that never made it home to me. When I asked about these expenses, Marcus always had explanations. Client meetings, business development, gifts for his assistant or his sister or his mother. I wanted to believe him. I chose to believe him because the alternative was too devastating to consider. But I'm not stupid. I'm a financial analyst with 20 years of experience tracking money flows and detecting irregularities. And by the time I was 4 months into that Southeast Asia contract, I knew exactly what was happening. Marcus was having an affair with a girl barely older than the interns we used to hire, and he was using our company credit cards to fund their relationship. The final confirmation came through social media, of all things. I was scrolling through LinkedIn during a break in meetings when I saw a post from Madison celebrating her college graduation. The photos showed her at what was clearly an expensive graduation dinner, wearing a necklace that I recognized from our credit card statements. A necklace that Marcus had told me was a gift for his sister's birthday. That's when hurt began transforming into something else entirely. Something cold and calculating and absolutely focused. If Marcus wanted to trade his 47-year-old wife for a 20-year-old girl, he was welcome to do so. But he was going to pay the full price for that decision. I spent the next 3 months in what I can only describe as a state of controlled fury. During the day, I maintained my professional demeanor, managing the Southeast Asia contract with my usual precision. But at night, alone in various hotel rooms across Thailand, Malaysia, and Singapore, I planned my response. The beauty of being a financial consultant is that you understand exactly how money moves through complex systems. The beauty of being married to someone for 23 years is that you know all their passwords, security questions, and financial habits. The beauty of being underestimated is that no one sees you coming. My first step was documentation, I meticulously recorded every fraudulent transaction Marcus had made, every lie he had told, every dollar he had stolen to fund his midlife crisis. I hired a private investigator in the States, someone with no connection to our social or professional circles, to document his relationship with Madison. The evidence was overwhelming and undeniable. Photos of them at expensive restaurants, hotel registrations under both their names, receipts for jewelry and designer goods, even vacation bookings to romantic destinations I had never seen. But evidence wasn't enough. I needed strategy. See, Marcus had made a crucial error in his planning. He assumed that because I was often traveling, I wasn't paying attention to the day-to-day operations of our business. He thought he could move money around without me noticing, make financial decisions without my input, even restructure parts of our business relationships to benefit his new life. What he didn't understand was that being physically absent didn't mean being professionally disengaged. In fact, managing international contracts had made me more meticulous about financial oversight, not less. Marcus had been moving money, but he had been sloppy about it. He had transferred funds from accounts that were earmarked for specific business purposes. He had used corporate credit lines for personal expenses. He had even taken out loans against our business assets without proper documentation. All of this was not just ethically wrong, it was legally actionable. But my masterpiece wasn't what I discovered about his financial manipulation. It was what I had been quietly building while he was distracted by his 20-year-old girlfriend. While Marcus was busy playing sugar daddy to a college student, I had been creating an entirely separate financial structure that existed parallel to our joint assets. Over the past 18 months, I had been quietly establishing myself as an independent consultant, not to compete with our business, but to create options. International consulting work offers unique opportunities for legitimate tax planning and asset protection. Opportunities that Marcus knew nothing about because he had never bothered to understand the technical details of what I did. I had established Rebecca Hartwell Consulting as a separate entity, initially just as a vehicle for managing the Southeast Asia contract. But over time, I had expanded it into a comprehensive consulting practice with its own client relationships, its own financial structure, and its own asset base. The Southeast Asia contract, for instance, wasn't actually held by Hartwell and Associates. It was held by Rebecca Hartwell Consulting, with Hartwell and Associates acting as a subcontractor. This meant that if anything happened to our partnership, I retained primary control over our biggest source of revenue. I had also been quietly purchasing real estate through a series of LLCs that I controlled independently. Properties funded through legitimate consulting fees and business expenses that were properly documented but existed in a financial universe that Marcus had never bothered to explore. By the time Marcus sent me that WhatsApp message, I owned outright 3 properties worth a combined $2.8 million. Properties that existed completely separate from our joint assets. But the real genius of my plan wasn't what I had built. It was what I had allowed him to destroy. You see, those joint accounts that Marcus had been so eager to empty, much of that money came from business loans and credit lines that were secured by assets he didn't fully understand. Money that came with repayment obligations and reporting requirements that would become apparent only when certain financial triggers were activated. Marcus had essentially been stealing money that was borrowed against future earnings, secured by business assets that required both our signatures to liquidate, with repayment schedules tied to contracts that I now controlled independently. In his eagerness to fund his new relationship, he had created a financial house of cards that was about to collapse. And when it did, it would take him and his 20-year-old girlfriend down with it. The message came on a Tuesday morning while I was having breakfast in my Bangkok hotel. I had been expecting it for weeks, but the casual cruelty of it still took my breath away. Rebecca, I'm done with this marriage. I'm leaving you for Madison. She's 20, she's beautiful, and she makes me feel alive again. I'm taking everything, the house, the accounts, all of it. Don't try to fight me on this. I've already moved the money. 20 years old. He was destroying our 23-year marriage for someone who couldn't even legally drink when we got married. A second message followed immediately. Madison and I are moving in together next week. We're young and in love. You're 47, Rebecca. It's time you accepted that your best years are behind you. And then the final insult. I've closed your access to the business accounts. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. You can keep the consulting work since that's all you really care about anyway. I read those messages 3 times, feeling something cold and sharp settle in my chest. Not heartbreak. I had already grieved the end of my marriage months ago. This was something else. This was the moment when hurt transforms into purpose. 47 years old, past my prime. All I cared about was work. Marcus had just made the biggest mistake of his life. I typed back, "Sure, good luck, darling." And then I got to work. My first call was to our primary business attorney, James Morrison. I reached him at his office in Manhattan at 7 a.m. New York time. "James, it's Rebecca Hartwell. I need you to listen very carefully. Marcus has just informed me via text message that he's divorcing me and has moved all our business assets into accounts I can't access. I need you to file an emergency injunction to freeze all business accounts and assets, pending a full financial audit." Rebecca, slow down. What exactly? James, I'm going to email you a complete financial analysis I've been preparing for the past 3 months. Marcus has been systematically stealing from our business to fund an affair with a 20-year-old girl. He's violated our partnership agreement, our fiduciary duties to our clients, and probably several federal laws. I need that injunction filed today. There was a long pause. How long have you known about this? Long enough to be prepared. Can you file the injunction or not? I'll file it within the hour. My second call was to our primary client in Bangkok, Mr. Chen. "Mr. Chen, this is Rebecca Hartwell. I need to inform you of a potential disruption to our consulting contract. My business partner has just dissolved our partnership without proper notice and in violation of our contract terms. However, I want to assure you that this will not affect the quality or continuity of our work. Miss Hartwell, this is unexpected. What are you suggesting?" "I'm suggesting that I continue to fulfill our contract through Rebecca Hartwell Consulting, which has been the primary contractor for this project from the beginning. This requires a simple contract modification, which I can have prepared within 24 hours. In the financial terms, unchanged. You continue to pay the agreed rate, but to Rebecca Hartwell Consulting directly. I absorb any legal complications with my former partner. Send me the paperwork." My third call was to our accountant, Patricia Webb. "Patricia, it's Rebecca. I need you to prepare a complete financial analysis of Hartwell and Associates for divorce proceedings. I also need you to identify any tax obligations or liabilities associated with money that Marcus has moved out of our business accounts." "Rebecca, I'm so sorry. I had no idea. How much trouble is he in with the IRS?" A long pause. "If he's moved the money, I think he's moved." "Rebecca, he's taken funds that were earmarked for quarterly tax payments and business loan obligations. The penalties alone could be devastating." "How devastating?" "We're talking about potential criminal charges if the government decides he was deliberately evading tax obligations. And the business loans, if he's used that money for personal expenses, the banks can demand immediate repayment of the full amounts." Perfect. My fourth call was to my private investigator, David Kim. "David, it's time. I need you to deliver all the documentation on Marcus and Madison to my attorney immediately. Photos, financial records, hotel receipts, everything. And I need you to serve Marcus with a cease and desist order regarding his access to our business accounts." "Where is he now?" "According to his credit card records, he should be at Madison's apartment in Soho. The address is in the file I sent you. I can have him served by tonight." My final call was the most satisfying one. I called Madison directly. Madison answered on the third ring, her voice bright and cheerful. "Hello? Madison, this is Rebecca Hartwell, Marcus's wife. I think you and I need to have a conversation." There was a long silence. Then, in a much smaller voice, "Mrs. Hartwell, I don't know what to say." "You don't need to say anything. You just need to listen. Marcus has told me about your relationship, and he's informed me that he's leaving me to be with you. I'm calling to make sure you understand exactly what you're getting into. We love each other. I know the age difference seems like a lot, but Madison, honey, I don't care about the age difference. What I care about is that you understand the financial and legal situation you're about to inherit. Another silence. Marcus has been using stolen money to fund your relationship. The restaurants, the hotels, the jewelry he's bought you, all of that was paid for with money that was embezzled from our business. Money that belongs to our clients, our creditors, and the IRS. That's not... He wouldn't... Madison, I'm a financial analyst. I have documentation of every fraudulent transaction. Marcus is about to face criminal charges for tax evasion and embezzlement. The FBI will be investigating him within the week. Anyone associated with him, anyone who benefited from the stolen money could face charges as well. I could hear her breathing on the other end of the line, quick and shallow. The apartment he's planning to move you both into, it's being paid for with money that doesn't belong to him. The vacation he's promised to take you on, same thing. The new car he's talking about buying, he doesn't have the money for any of it. But he said he was rich. He said he owned a successful business. He does own half of a successful business. But he's about to lose that, along with everything else, because he chose to steal money to impress a girl who's young enough to be his daughter. I didn't know, she whispered. I swear I didn't know. I believe you, but now you do know. The question is, what are you going to do about it? What happened next was a cascade of consequences that even I hadn't fully anticipated. The emergency injunction was filed and approved within 6 hours. By Tuesday evening, all business accounts associated with Hartwell and Associates were frozen pending a full financial audit. Marcus discovered this when he tried to pay for an expensive dinner in Soho, and his credit card was declined. The contract modification with my Bangkok client was signed by Wednesday morning. Rebecca Hartwell Consulting was now the official contractor for the $12 million Southeast Asia project. Marcos was officially cut out of the biggest deal of our careers. The tax situation exploded on Thursday. The IRS had been monitoring our accounts due to the large international money transfers associated with my consulting work. When they discovered that Marcus had moved funds designated for tax payments, they immediately initiated an investigation for tax evasion. By Friday, all of his personal accounts were frozen, and he was facing potential federal charges. But the real earthquake was what happened with Madison. To her credit, the girl was smarter than Marcus had given her credit for. When faced with the reality of what she had gotten herself into, she made the intelligent choice. She broke up with him on Wednesday night, moved out of her apartment, which Marcus had been paying for, and called her parents in Ohio to ask if she could come home. She also did something that Marcus hadn't expected. She kept detailed records of everything he had given her, and she turned those records over to the FBI as evidence in their investigation. The jewelry, the expensive dinners, the weekend trips. Madison documented all of it, provided receipts and photos, and testified about how Marcus had told her the money came from his successful business. Her cooperation with the federal investigation was devastating to Marcus's case and probably saved her from facing charges herself. By Thursday, Marcus was alone, broke, and facing federal criminal charges. By Friday, he was calling me, begging for help. I didn't answer. I returned to the States on Saturday morning, landing at JFK to find Marcus waiting for me at the airport. He looked like he had aged 10 years in 1 week. His usually perfect hair was disheveled, his expensive suit wrinkled, and there were dark circles under his eyes that spoke of sleepless nights and mounting panic. Rebecca, we need to talk. No, we don't. Please. This has gotten completely out of hand. I never meant for it to go this far. I stopped walking and looked at him, really looked at him for the first time in months. You destroyed our marriage for a 20-year-old girl, Marcus. A child. Someone who wasn't even born when we were building our business together. It wasn't about her age. It was about feeling young again, feeling alive. It was about your ego. You turned 50 last year and couldn't handle the fact that you're getting older. So instead of dealing with that like an adult, you decided to prove your virility by seducing someone young enough to be our daughter. He reached for my arm. But I stepped back. Rebecca, I can fix this. We can work something out. I'll end things with Madison. There is no things with Madison. She broke up with you and turned evidence over to the FBI. She's testifying against you in federal court. The color drained from his face. What? She's not as naive as you thought, Marcus. When she realized you had been using stolen money to impress her, she made the smart choice. She saved herself and hung you out to dry. But she loved me. She loved the expensive restaurants and designer gifts. She loved the excitement of being with an older, successful man. She didn't love you, Marcus. She loved what you could buy her. And now that she knows the money was stolen, she's protecting herself. He looked genuinely shocked, as if the possibility had never occurred to him. She can't do this. We had something real. What you had was a transactional relationship funded by embezzled money. What she has now is a clean conscience and immunity from prosecution. The next 8 months were a masterclass in how quickly a life built on lies and stolen money can collapse. Marcus's criminal trial for tax evasion and embezzlement began in February. The evidence was overwhelming. He had moved money that was earmarked for federal tax obligations, used business funds for personal expenses, and attempted to hide assets during a federal investigation. Madison's testimony was particularly damaging, as she provided detailed accounts of how Marcus had bragged about his wealth and his ability to make money disappear from business accounts. He pled guilty to avoid a longer sentence and was sentenced to 2 years in federal prison. Our divorce was finalized in March. The settlement was surprisingly simple. I kept the business, which was now worth over $10 million thanks to the Southeast Asia contract, and 3 additional clients I had secured independently. I kept our primary residence, which I had been secretly paying for, through one of my LLCs for the past year. I kept my independently acquired properties and investments. Marcus kept his legal bills and his prison sentence. But the most satisfying part wasn't the legal consequences. It was watching Marcus finally understand what he had given up. "How did you know?" he asked me during our final meeting before he reported to federal prison. "How did you figure it out?" "I'm a financial analyst, Marcus. It's literally my job to follow money trails and detect fraud. The only surprise is that you thought you could outsmart me at my own profession, but you seemed so calm. When I told you I was leaving, you just said, 'Sure, good luck.' I thought you didn't care." I smiled. "I didn't say I didn't care. I said good luck, because I knew you were going to need it. And Madison, I really thought she cared about me. Marcus, you're a 50-year-old man who was buying expensive gifts for a 20-year-old college student with stolen money. What did you think was going to happen when the money ran out?" He was quiet for a long moment. I felt young with her. I felt like I mattered. "You mattered to me for 23 years. But that wasn't enough, was it? You needed validation from someone who reminded you of what you used to be, instead of appreciating what you had become. I know I made mistakes." "You didn't make mistakes, Marcus. You made choices. You chose to lie to me for months. You chose to steal money from our business. You chose to throw away 23 years of marriage for a girl who was never going to love you for who you really are. It's been 18 months since that WhatsApp message changed my life, and I'm writing this from my office in Singapore, where I've established the Asian headquarters of Rebecca Hartwell Consulting. My business has quadrupled in size. I've hired 15 employees, and I'm currently managing consulting contracts worth over $40 million. I'm also, for the first time in my adult life, completely and utterly free. Free from the constant worry about whether my husband was lying to me. Free from the exhausting work of maintaining a marriage that had become more business partnership than love affair. Free from defining myself through someone else's choices and failures. Marcus was released from federal prison 6 months ago. He's living in a studio apartment in Queens and working as a bookkeeper for a small accounting firm. His business credentials are destroyed, his reputation is ruined, and he's still paying restitution to the IRS. He'll be doing that for the next decade. Madison, I'm told, graduated from college and got a job with a marketing firm in Cleveland. She moved back home with her parents, stayed out of the media spotlight, and learned a valuable lesson about the difference between love and financial manipulation. I hope she finds someone her own age who loves her for who she is, not for how she makes him feel about himself. The house that Marcus and Madison were going to share, I bought the building. Not because I needed it, but because I could. It's now a rental property that generates substantial income and serves as a constant reminder of how far I've come. But this isn't really a story about revenge, although I suppose that's how it appears on the surface. This is a story about discovering who you really are when everything you thought you knew about your life turns out to be a lie. For 23 years, I defined myself through my marriage to Marcus. I was his wife, his business partner, his other half. When he betrayed me, I thought I was losing my identity. What I actually discovered was that I had never needed him at all. The business success, the financial acumen, the strategic thinking, the ability to build relationships with clients, all of that was mine. I had been carrying him for years without realizing it. Last month, I received an unexpected message. Not from Marcus, he knows better than to contact me, but from Madison. Mrs. Hartwell, I know you probably don't want to hear from me, but I wanted to thank you. When you called me that day, you saved my life. I was about to make the biggest mistake imaginable, and you helped me see the truth about what was happening. I'm sorry for the pain I caused you, and I hope someday you can forgive me. I stared at that message for a long time, sitting in my corner office overlooking Singapore's financial district. Outside my window, the city pulsed with the energy of commerce and ambition and endless possibility. I thought about that woman in the Bangkok hotel room 18 months ago, reading Marcus's cruel dismissal and feeling her world shift. I thought about the months of planning and preparation that followed, the careful construction of financial traps and legal consequences. I thought about justice and revenge and the difference between the two. And then I typed back, Madison, you were 20 years old and you trusted someone who manipulated you. You don't need my forgiveness because you didn't really do anything wrong. I hope you've learned to trust your instincts and never let anyone make you doubt your own worth. She responded immediately, I have, and I hope you know that what he did wasn't about you not being enough. You're incredible, and he was just too stupid to see it. Out of the mouths of babes. I deleted the conversation and went back to work, because the best revenge isn't destruction, it's success. And I have never been more successful, more confident, or more free than I am today. Marcus thought he was ending my story with that WhatsApp message, trading his accomplished 47-year-old wife for a pretty 20-year-old girl who made him feel young again. Instead, he gave me the beginning of a much better story, one where I'm the protagonist, not the supporting character in someone else's midlife crisis. The irony isn't lost on me. He said my best years were behind me. As it turns out, they were just beginning.